Maitreji.
Okay, give me a sec. So Radhe Radhe everyone, a very warm welcome to today's session of Bhagavad Gita. So let's get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right, Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Again, a very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. So today we are going to talk about the difference between a karma and a leela is what we are going to talk about. We'll move on to Shloka 4.9 today, which addresses many questions. You know, when we talk about God, we think of him as, you know, somebody just like us, who's like somebody we can, you know, talk about and think about in the same way as we do about people around. That is what our mind is habituated to. So this shloka addresses a lot of questions around that, right? So let's get started. I'm going to recite this shloka and then you are welcome to follow along. Janma karma cha me divyam yo veti tattvataha divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. All right.
Radhe Radhe Samji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन.
Very nice. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna.
Very nice. Thank you, Dinesh.
Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma mameti sorjuna. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Very nice. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe Shamji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sorjuna. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe. Very nice, Shamji. Thank you.
So you're all encouraged to turn on your videos. I will first take those who have their videos on. So Tarunji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Janma karma cha ma divyamevam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sorjuna. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam yo veti tatvatah. Then you get your meter right. So I made the same mistake too. Thank you. Okay, let's take the remaining hands real quick.
Uday ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam yeti so Arjuna. Radhe Radhe.
Nice, thank you, Vijay.
Radhe Radhe, Riya ji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति माम् एति सोऽर्जुन.
Very nice, thank you, Riya ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji.
जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सो अर्जुन.
Very nice, thank you, Pragi ji. Okay, we have two more hands. We can take those.
Radhe Radhe, Sam ji.
Radhe Radhe. Janam karam cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvata tyakta deham punarjanma neti mam eti sojana. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, thank you, Sam ji. All right, Sandhya, go ahead.
Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna.
Arjuna, very nice. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. So, Lord is saying in this shloka, see, he's talking about his dissension, right? If you look at it in conjunction with the previous shloka, he's talking about why does he descend? And then when he descend, of course, he has to come on this earth, right? Like we all do. There has to be some way. He cannot prakat appear himself just like that. So there's a process he follows as well. And that's what we're going to talk about. So in conjunction with the previous shloka, if you look at it, the narrative continues. You know, he descends, and then when he descends, he's saying, those who understand the divine nature of my birth and activities, O Arjun, upon leaving the body, do not have to take birth again, but come to my eternal abode. Oh, he's given very simple statement. Those who understand the divine nature. So if you understand the divine nature of his birth and activities, you come to his abode. It's a very simple formula. But the catch here is, for you to understand his divine birth and activities, you have to be divine yourself. Okay, so you should have realized him by then. Then only you'll be able to understand that part. But from our standpoint, the least we can do is to bring in divine sentiments. That is well within our control, as opposed to analyzing with our mundane intellect. Krishna, or God, when he descends, he's not like another person who's visiting us from UK or America or somebody like that, whom we start analyzing, you know what, like this and that, with our mundane worldly intellect, and start critiquing, criticizing, even analyzing all that stuff. Okay, so he's saying very clearly, those who understand the divine nature of my birth and activities, upon leaving the body, they come to his abode. Okay, but for us to understand that, we have to have achieved realization, to completely know that it is divine in nature. From our standpoint, from a practical standpoint, what we are expected to do is to bring in divine sentiments towards his leelas. So let's get started with today's session. We'll start with a bit of a mind simulation. You see this boy? Don't go by his hairstyle. Okay, just look at the activity that he's doing. Yeah. So here are his boots. Here are his bootlaces. And here is an attempt to lift himself. Now, looking at this activity, what would you tell this boy? Real quick, just to get your thought process going. Just visualize yourself, wearing shoes and trying to lift yourself. Okay, anybody? I see one hand. Go ahead, Sandhya.
He's being stupid.
He's being stupid. Why is he being stupid is the question here.
This way he will not be able to lift himself up. And
Why he will not be able to lift himself? Okay. Yes, Sam, go ahead. Shyamji, you wanted to add something and then you changed your mind? Yes, Sam,
No.
go ahead.
Swamiji tells this analogy in the context of trying to remove ignorance with our intellect, in which the ignorance resides. Since endless lifetime, the ignorance resides in the intellect, and trying to remove it using the same intellect. In that analogy, Swamiji said this example.
Okay, so is gravity.
What is she saying?
Gravity, if that's what you were looking for.
Now we're getting into physics, huh? Yeah, so basically there is no basis. It's holding it and there is no basis for it to lift it up. Okay, so this is the whole idea. Now, when we try to analyze God with our limited buddhi, right, which our intellect, if you look at it, right, which we suppose to be residing here, it's not even worth 2 fingers. And when we try to analyze it sitting, hey, Lord Ram, this and, this did not make sense. And why did he do that? By the way, I don't agree with that. In my opinion, you know what? You're essentially doing this activity. Okay, next time you start to intellectualize God's Leelas and what he did, despite your best intentions and despite the fact you may consider yourself as a deep thinker, you cannot, because that's the very basis of he's the basis of our existence. Okay, and when he comes here, he's very clearly saying, Janma karma chame divyam. Right? A lot of people, they ask questions. I've seen in news channels and even on social media, they start questioning, hey, if Lord Rama was God, why did he do that, kind of a deal, right? He did that, okay? It's called a Leela. In due course of time, it will click as well. Scriptures explain it, but you gain that depth. And there are certain things like Bhagavad Gita's message, it's not revealed, it's not given to you on a platter. You gain eligibility, it will make sense. But before even gaining that eligibility or getting into the depth of understanding who God is, when we start putting a question mark, there is no basis. It's like trying to lift yourself through your bootlaces. That's essentially what that activity translates to. Okay. And the second problem with that activity is it is called putting a question mark on what is a spiritual transgression as well. Okay. So that puts your spiritual journey back. Okay. So that is a bigger part, which we should not basically do. It's very difficult to make even a little bit of spiritual progress. And if something puts your journey back, then it's the worst thing we can do to ourselves. So the safer policy is suspend it. You don't need to know all the answers to begin with, right? In due course of time, it will make sense and it will click with God's grace. And that is how it works in this journey. There are so many answers you don't get to begin with, but whatever little we understand, let's make progress. And then the next and the next and the next, it will continue like that. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Well, a question came up while you were describing this. It's actually regarding a Leela only. That the question is, I've always wondered why Lord Ram sent Sita Mata to the forest when she was pregnant.
Why did he make him walk through Agni Pariksha, right? Feminists, they don't like it as well. And then the Uttarkand aspect of it, right? So the point is, let's say God's Leelas are God's Leelas, okay? First of all, Ram and Sita are ever united, right? If we truly understand the scriptures and the very definition of God, Shakti and Shaktiman, they are never separated. So whether Radha marries Krishna or not, or is born before Krishna, it does not matter. They are like milk and whiteness. Shakti and Shaktiman Sambandh is eternal. It is not a mundane worldly relationship the way we analyze it. Similarly, Lakshmi, Narayan, Shiv, Parvati, Sita, Ram, they are eternally united. Nobody can separate them from each other. Now, the Leelas that they do, a lot of things that when you churn those Leelas, a lot of stuff comes out of it. So let's not limit it at this point only. Why did he send him to forest? Why did he make him fight? In due course of time, it will come out. Okay. Now, I will say what makes you think, Lord Ram sent Sita to forest? I don't agree with that. You'll say, what kind of a revolutionary answer is that? Okay, it is there. We all know that. How do we know that? We know it through Ramayana. We have all seen it, heard it. Yes, we know it through Ramayana. Ramayana also says Lord Ram is God. And it also gives the definition of God. God is all perfect. Why don't we go with that definition? When he's all perfect, you think he'll be committing errors like mundane people would do, left, right, and center? He will not. So when he's God, he's all perfect. Give it some time. It'll make sense. You cannot selectively pick up some stuff. It'll make sense. Why he does leelas for the, and I'm going to get into that topic of difference between a leela and a karma. Okay. A man, if he does that to his wife, okay, that will be construed as a karma, and his intention will be checked and stuff like that. I'll get into that. When God does, it's called a leela. He doesn't have to, and it is for a specific purpose. So we'll get into that. Yes, Sandhya, you had another question?
Yeah, there's an answer to previous question. One of the, I think, suggested answer.
Sure.
I heard it. This was Chaya of Sita Mata, which was taken in Lanka.
Many theories are there, right? Chaya, even they say that he had given it to Agni Dev, the soul of Sita, and when Sita was made to walk, he recaptured it. So all those stories are there. Regardless, I would say, these are not the matters of debate and speculation, because let's simply put it that, okay, God's leelas are perfect like God himself. So when we start putting mundane buddhi, it doesn't take as much weight. I see Arnima raising her hand. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes,
She may add some insights into this.
Radhe Radhe, yeah, I just have heard something, so I thought I will share that at that moment, Lord Ram was the king, and as a Maryada Purushottam, he was showing that his kingdom, he has to take care of his praja first, then his family. So
Yeah.
that was
So
one of the thought
now
process.
see, when we try to defend it or justify it or explain it, right? Any explanation, any statement, any argument can have a counter statement, counter opinion, counter, but then somebody will say, okay. So there are so many things. So I will not even get into trying to defend it. I would rather have this concept grow into you through your devotion than somebody trying to explain it intellectually. Because you can't convince somebody, right? If somebody is hell-bent upon taking a stance on it because they think their intellect has sorted it all out, then you can't convince them. Somebody can again come up with a counter, and then you'll give a statement, then they'll again come up with a counter. It will take nowhere, right? On the contrary, what happens in these kind of discussions is you are making them do repeated namaparad. So if they were here in the spiritual journey, by the end of the argument, they have put their journey too far, because now they are taking an ego trip on this, ego ride on this to prove you wrong. And in the process, they are questioning and questioning and questioning God's leelas, which is not good for our spiritual journey. So the best policy is, even if somebody tells you there was a big monkey carrying a big mountain over the big sea, and planted it, okay. Your mind will immediately say, no, that will not happen. How is it possible? But just suspend it. Okay, in due course of time, it'll make sense. Let me focus on the aspects that help my devotion, and then pray to God that you resolve all these riddles in my mind, and it'll happen, trust me. And there was a story of Vaishampai Muni where this guy Janmeje, he was told by Vedavyas, he was suffering from leprosy, by the way, because of the Brahma Hatya that he did. He was explaining him what Honi is. He said, your limb will get cured if you go to Vaishampai and listen to Mahabharat with full faith. Don't put kintu parantu and but or question that. If you listen to Mahabharat, you will get completely cured. But I know you will not do that. But nevertheless, this guy goes to Janmeje, who was a son of Parikshit, by the way. Parikshit was a son of Arjun. We all know that. So he goes to Vaishampai, and Vaishampai starts telling him Mahabharat. So he starts going through adhyaya by adhyaya, and he starts listening with full attention and faith. And his body starts getting cured, until just one limb, a little part of it was there, where Vaishampai says, he talks about Bhim, and he said Bhim had so much of power that he would pick up an elephant, rotate it and throw it like this, and it will go start orbiting the earth. So, okay, just imagine the amount of energy Bhim would have, centripetal force around the earth, it will go around like a satellite. When he heard that, immediately question came, not possible. He started laughing, actually, Janmeje. And that's it. That condition that you have to, completely have trust was violated. And his curing process stopped, and then eventually he died of that. But nevertheless, what Vaishampai did was he raised his hand. And when he raised his hand, thud came an elephant down below, just to prove him that, see, what I was telling you is actually true. One of the elephants who was orbiting came down. Now you'll say, what kind of a power? Anyway, I'll not get into those stories, but let's suspend those stuff and say there are things which are beyond our comprehension at this point, and in due course of time, they will make sense. Right? And if we take, Ram Bhagwan's Leela, we start explaining through Maryada, there will be tons of arguments against it again. What kind of a Maryada it is, what kind of, Dhobi's behest he did that, who will send their kids and wife like this for the thing. All these things will come, which will not take us very far. So let's focus on cultivating the devotion aspect of it, taking refuge in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna himself is saying, my Jan and Karm are Divya. Okay, so his Jan, his birth, as well as the Leelas that he does, they are Divya, means divine. Don't analyze it through material intellect. And I gave you an example to start off with. It's like this guy, okay, who's trying to lift himself through his bootlaces. Okay, it's a futile exercise. There's no basis for him to do that. So next time you start intellectualizing God's Leela, this question comes up, always remember this picture. Okay, it's like somebody trying to lift themselves with their bootlaces. It's not going to take them too far. Okay, so let's refrain from that. So let's get started now. Bhagavatam states that when Sri Krishna manifested upon birth before Vasudeva and Devaki, he was in his four-armed form. The full-size Vishnu form, he was in his Vishnu form. And then this full-size form could definitely not have resided in Devaki's womb. Now, Devaki's womb can take only so much, right? There are physical constraints and limitations around our body. How can it take on a four-arm form of Vishnu around it? It cannot, right? Then what happened? However, to create another feeling, he was there by his Yogamaya power. He simply kept expanding Devaki's womb. He gave her a full simulation, like a mother would feel. Okay, that I'm holding a baby in my womb. Okay, because he's taking a birth, so he has to give her that. But is he obliged to hang upside down for 9 months? Like us, he's not. He gave her that feeling, and finally, he just manifested from outside, revealing that he had never been inside her. He simply manifested from outside. So by the way, when she saw him, he said, when I look at this form, I feel like reciting Vishnu Sahasranama, all respect, awe and reverence. How can I conceive you like my baby? And he said, all right, let me just come as a baby in front of you in that case. So it's only through his Yogamaya power that he manifested. He was not like a regular birth who's inside the womb for 9 months and then hanging upside down and praying, okay, God, take me out, because he himself has to take himself out, right? So he just simply appears. So that is in Bhagavatam. Furthermore, this is also in Bhagavatam. It goes on to state that just as the moon manifests in its full glory in the night sky, similarly, Supreme Lord Krishna manifested before Devaki and Vasudeva. This is the divine nature of God's birth. If we can develop faith in the divinity of his pastimes and birth, then we will be able to easily engage in devotion to his personal form and attain the supreme destination. It's a very simple thing. Bhagavatam goes on to explain that how the birth actually took place. Okay, it's not like a regular birth, cesarean or otherwise. It is manifestation. Through his Yogamaya power, he may give you a feeling or a simulation, but it's actually not that way. Yes, Sandhya?
I had this question. So, like knowing this, that the way he takes birth and his leelas are distinct from us, can that impact the kind of emotion we develop for him? Because otherwise we maybe some Aishwarya Bhav could come in the mind thinking about this.
That is true. See, when he takes birth, he makes his associates forget about it through his Yogamaya as well. Right? Otherwise, the rest of the Leela will become diminished. So gopis, they have that divinity thing that he's divine, but at that moment, their love is so strong that you forget about all that stuff. So for us, it's important to know about his birth. We can't consider, but when you build a relationship with him, you can still do that, right? But back of the mind, knowledge is important. Who is truly is right now. When we are reading the scriptures, it's important to understand God. That's what we are doing. But when you build a relationship with God, you can leave that aspect out, Aishwarya Chintan out. That is how it's meant to. But from a knowledge standpoint, it's important to know, right? If we start considering God as one of us and start trivializing him and start analyzing him, okay, this person did this and even God did this, then that is the reason why we are going through this, right? And in Bhagavad Gita is very clearly stated that my janma and karma both are divya, divine. It's not regular. Yeah. So this is basically to tackle the question that keeps on coming. Lord Krishna did that. Lord Rama did that. Lord Rama did this to his wife. Lord Krishna used to run out after girls and stuff like that. So he's saying these are all leelas. You just understand it properly. Now let's move on. So if we wish to engage in devotion towards Lord Krishna, we must learn to harbor divine sentiments towards his leelas. Okay. Sentiments is what is important in this case, where you think, okay, these are God's leelas. In this verse, Lord Krishna has emphasized the need for divine sentiments towards his pastimes for enhancing our devotion, is what we have been talking about as well, right? Now let's talk about it a little more in detail. Now, the Lord has given us not just his leelas, but multiple forms through his dissensions. So if you look at it, he gives us his name, right? Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, mantra we do. Radhe Sham, Sita Ram, then Om Namah Shivaya. He's given his name to us. Then he has given his forms to us as well. The different forms through which he descends. Then he's given his virtues, all the virtues that you can associate to. You can say Maryada Purushottam, or like Natkhat like Krishna and all that stuff, or beautiful enchanting form. So many virtues you can go to. Pastimes he's given, that is through his descension. Abode he has given, Vrindavan is abode. So basically God is saying, and Parikar associates. If you think anything in this realm, you are in a divine realm. So when you sit down in your meditation or even in your thoughts, you bring in sentiments towards any of these, that will give you a divine impact. Okay, anything that you are basically thinking about in this realm is all divine. 6 things he has given: Naam, Roop, Gun, Leela, Dham, and Parikar. So these 6 things. See, when we go to God, world has a problem, right? Typically has a problem. Okay, why are you going overboard with that? Just do your regular puja part, not beyond that. So worldly people have a problem with that. So God also says, when you come to my realm, these 6 things are permissible. Now, if you take your mind to God, that is not permissible. World rather. They said, okay, like the world has its family, I also have my family, and these are the 6 things I have given you in my family. You play around with it, you will get the divine result. But then if you take your mind back to world, then it will be like you are again, contaminating it. So these are the 6 things God has given us that we can take benefit from through his descension. Okay, these are all divine. Now, this is our mind, and we have to purify our mind for us to be able to appreciate the divinity. Right? That is the process. Spirituality is all about cleaning our antakaran. Right? Antakaran Shuddhi is the whole and sole objective of spirituality, which means purifying our mind. And our mind gets cleansed by engaging it in devotional remembrance of God. See, Bhakti Marg is where you are tapping into your emotions. You're utilizing, channelizing your emotions to progress. And devotion is basically tapping into devotion. So when even the Roop Dhyan is called an emotional meditation. You bring your emotions, and then through harnessing those emotions, when they become strong, you melt it. You melt your heart, right? And then when you melt your heart, then only it can take on a new color. Like a cold wax, when you melt a wax, then only it can take on a new color. So that is how this process goes. And devotional remembrance of God, when we do that, it cleanses our mind. So we have 2 aspects to God, right? Purifying the mind. You can think of God in his personal form, or we have spoken about the light and the Omkar, the Om syllable as well, right? The impersonal form of God. Both things are there. However, devotion to personal form is tangible and simple. We have spoken about this concept. Again, reiterate it. It's tangible and very simple because we are habituated to forms. And this, the other hand, it is intangible and nebulous to most people. They find nothing to focus upon or feel connected with during such devotional meditation. This basically, you can do that, but then there's no basis again. You're just thinking of something intangible and impersonal. This devotion requires divine sentiments towards the personality of God, develop divine feelings towards the 6 things that we spoke about: Nam, Gun, Roop, Leela, and Dham. And in this one, like example, people purify their mind by worshipping stone deities as well, because they harbor divine sentiments that God resides in these deities. It is these sentiments that purify the devotee's mind. By the way, tomorrow we are going to talk about where does God reside. Okay, what is his address, postal address, and this deity worship thing. That is another thing I wanted to tackle as part of these sessions, because that is again misunderstood, where people say this deity worship is farce, right? Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Murti Pujan Khandan, and all that stuff that happened, that whole drive. And then we basically say this deity worship is people for the dim intellect. You are objectifying the God, and this is not how it's meant to be. So we'll talk about that tomorrow in great detail. Also the postal address of God. Where does God reside, his zip code and everything. Yes, Tarunji?
Yes, Tarunji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Nitinji, just if it is possible, so when you regarding your tomorrow session, if you can put some light onto the Jagannath Ji deity, and that is considered as a live, still
Sure.
live.
We'll talk
form of-
briefly about that too, no worries. Yeah, we'll just put the deity worship in perspective tomorrow. Okay. And also, where does God reside? This question is very important to be tackled in our mind, because people challenge it, trivialize it, and all that stuff. So we'll talk about that. And we'll again take scriptural references around it. Okay. So we'll do that. Thank you. And in the impersonal aspect of it, anyway, this 12.5 also say klesho adhiktaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham dehavad bhirvapyate. Those whose minds are attached to unmanifest, the path of realization is full of tribulations. Worship of the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. And that is probably why God takes avatar to reveal his personal form. And he's saying that, you know, his birth is not ordinary, but it is divine. And Brahman is not only formless, it also without attributes. So Nam, Roop, Gun, Leela, Dham, nothing is manifested when you think about light. Light cannot do Leelas, right? The Om syllable, which is the Bij mantra or the cause of all, right? We spoke about Om in great detail in one of our sessions. Then again, it cannot do Leelas and stuff like that. So there's a limitation to that practice where you cannot devour the ras or the mellow or the you know, the charms of God that he brings in when he descends. So nirgun, nirvishesh, without attribute, it becomes a little difficult to do and insipid as well, you know, that path. Now let's talk about our actions, right? Our actions and then God's actions. Let's have a comparison around those. See, we are materially bound, conditioned souls. We have not attained divine bliss. Okay, if one of you or some of you have attained it, then you are an exception. But scriptures say for materially conditioned souls who have not attained divine bliss, and hence our soul is longing for that divine bliss and not yet satiated. Okay, it's looking for that. So our actions, whatever we do, however selfless your intellect or mind is telling you, will always be motivated by self-interest and desire for personal fulfillment. Okay, because we have not yet reached that perfect divine bliss. So our actions will always be motivated to fulfill our personal desire. Okay. On the other hand, if you look at it, God's actions have no personal motive. He have nothing to achieve. See, imagine you wake up one day in the morning and you have nothing to do and nowhere to go. God is like that. Okay. He has nothing more to achieve. He's complete, paripurn in himself. He's called Atmarati, Atma Krida, and Atmaram. So he's full in himself. He doesn't have to do anything because he's perfectly satiated by his infinite bliss of his own personality. He does not even need to achieve any further bliss by performing actions, right? He doesn't have to do. We do action to attain something because we don't have it as yet. So whatever God does is for the welfare of the materially conditioned souls. So when God does something, it is for the welfare. Even the leelas that he's not doing his for own sake. It is for the welfare of human beings. Okay, every leela that he does. So while the actions that we perform are called work, it is called work. What we do is called karam. Now we can choose to do karam, akaram, or vikaram. but that is work, and it is bound by the law of karma. When what God does is called Leela. It is not bound by the law of karma. Okay, he is not bound by the law of karma. Now you say, why is he enjoying such a privilege? He's enjoying such a privilege because he's already Siddh. He's already Paripurn in himself. Laws are needed to chisel somebody, right? To give them an incentive to become better so that they can attain what they need to attain as their true potential. God is Paripurn in himself. He doesn't need laws. He's the lawmaker himself. What he does is only for the welfare. Now, if we were in a situation where our every action, thought is motivated with the desire to serve others, if we were in that position, even we are not bound with karma. God is saying the same thing in Karma Yoga, right? When your every action is motivated for the pleasure of God, there is no karma. He's saying, become like me in those moments. I hope you're getting the technicality of it. His every action is motivated for the pleasure of, for the welfare of people. And when we align our action to that, even we are not bound by karma. Essentially, it is what's seen. So what he does is Leela at that point. And Leelas, they are not bound by the law of karma. Okay, Leela is an act for the welfare of others. We do Ram Leela, right? We don't become Ram. Similarly, when God does Nar Leela, he does not become Nar. He's still God. And when we do Ram Leela, we are still us. We don't become Ram. So God does Ram Leela. When he does a Nar Leela, he's still Ram. He's still Purushottam, Brahm. He's not becoming an ordinary human like us. So the yardstick or the basis for us to analyze God's action itself is flawed. We cannot do that. Okay. He only knows his Leelas. See, he's present everywhere in the every atom of this universe. And still he's asking Valmiki ji, where should I go and stay? You know, when he's going through the forest, he's asking it to him. Now, what kind of a question it is? And then he answers very beautifully. He says, God, first of all, tell me where, before I tell you where you should go, you tell me where you are not. But still, because you're doing this Leela, I would, as part of my, my seva, because you asked me, I'll still tell you, you go and live in Panchkuti or whatever that place, where Ram decided to stay. So he's simply doing Leela. And that Leela was tested by Sati Parvati also. We have spoken about it, right? When she saw Ram Bhagwan crying and wailing for Sita and roaming around like a person who has completely lost it, on losing his wife. He was asking Latas, Patas, every leaf, have you seen Sita? Have you seen Sita? Sati was like, what kind of a god is he, right? He's omniscient. He should know everything. And how can he be crying and wailing for his wife? Even in worldly people, on losing their wife or their loved one, will not behave like this, right? Have you seen Romeo Juliet or anybody does that? Nobody. So when God does Leela, he does it extreme Leela, super extreme Leela, okay, which in Bollywood they call it hamming. God doesn't do hamming. He actually gets into the skin of that character and he's crying and wailing because Sita's not there. Then she takes on a form of a Sita and sits in front of him. And immediately Ram says, Mother, what are you doing? Because he considers Shiv as a spiritual father. So Parvati automatically becomes his spiritual mother. And then she zapped. She said, oh my God, he came to know. And she goes back immediately. And then Shiv says, you assumed the form of my spiritual mother, which is Sita, but I can't accept you. I'll have to reject you as my wife now. And all that Sati Leela happened. So that Leela was performed just to tell our ordinary souls, don't put your buddhi into God's Leelas. Okay. The consequences could be disastrous if you do that. Okay. And Parvati proved it. What was the consequence? Why was it disastrous? She was rejected and then she came as Himalayas. She became Sati. Then she again took an avatar as Himalayas' daughter and all that Leela happened. And then she finally accepted her. The point here is, she just told us that as an ordinary human, don't never put your buddhi into God's Leelas. Only God knows what he's doing and he has a perfect plan in his mind. Okay, if you cannot understand it, that is your problem, not God's problem, because he's Purn and Paripurn in himself and he doesn't make mistakes. Yes, Rahul?
Yes, Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe.
राधे राधे. There is a very beautiful word in Hindi, लीलाओं में बलिहार जाइए, बुद्धि मत लगाइए.
लीला में बलिहार रहिए, बुद्धि मत लगाइए. और अगर बुद्धि लगती, if in case your intellect is still troubling you, then tell us why, God, you haven't graced me so far that this question is still confusing my mind. Ask for his grace so that it gets resolved. But don't live with that doubt and keep debating, arguing with others, because it's like lifting yourself with your bootlaces, not going to take anywhere. On the contrary, it's not good for our devotion. And if you really want to get an answer for that, and you sincerely seeking that answer, then make a promise to God. God, if you resolve this doubt for me, I'm going to break all the records in bhakti and attain you in this life itself. If you make that race, you're willing to make that resolve, then go find an answer. God will give you that answer. What are we going to do with that? Get an answer and then come to another question. Tell me this, why did he do that? And then what? It just becomes a matter of our entertainment, nothing more than that. Yes, Sandhya?
One comment. श्री राम सिखाते हैं कि मर्यादा में कैसे रहते हैं और कृष्णा सिखाते हैं कि मर्यादा में कैसे रखते हैं.
Very nice. Whoever said that, oh man, wah. You get wah from our side. Very true. We said that Ram is a Maryada Purushottam avatar, right? He never crosses the Maryada in anything. Right? Number 9, Ram Navami, 9 never crosses its Maryada. No matter what you multiply 9 with, it will always add up to 9. Right? And Krishna is 8, like infinity. He's all over the place. Okay, you can't bound him for anywhere. So both avatars had their own purpose, and they fulfilled that purpose to perfection when they took that avatar. See, Ram Bhagwan could not think of any other lady other than Mother Sita, right? It was a perfect Maryada Purushottam avatar. And Lord Krishna went on to marry 16,108. He said, all right, that's perfectly okay. I'm in a full form avatar right now. Right? So even Shrupanakha, who was rejected by Ram, she was obliged as Kubra, she became his wife at that. So God only knows his leelas. From our soul standpoint, the good policy is to suspend things in our head rather than trying to find answers. You can find answer as long as it's helping your devotion, and focus on things that truly help our devotion. So we should not be really analyzing God's leelas around it, because he's himself stating that they are divine, and it's not something you can analyze through your intellect. And God's birth is also divine, like we spoke about, not like ours. It doesn't take place from a mother's womb, and God is not obliged to hang upside down in mother's womb for 9 months. Okay, he doesn't have to do that. He can simply appear in front of you. So the question that I wanted to pose is, can we take Bhagavad Gita's teachings? Okay, not it, but any questions so far on what we have spoken? Maybe we have time, a little bit of time. Any other questions around God's leelas? There are a lot of questions that are thrown, right? God's ways and this and that and Sanatan. This one shloka addresses everything. Janma karma chime divyam. He's stated that. You quote it and say, okay, go read Bhagavad Gita 4.9, 4 into 2 plus 1, 4, 8, 9. Go check it out, and that answers everything. If you believe in Bhagavad Gita, you have to believe in Lord's words. His birth and actions are divine. And divine is something you can't analyze. In due course of time, it will make sense. Yes.
Yeah, I had one just input. So just like my understanding of this, that this does not mean that we should not try to understand or at least listen to the Leelas, because they are the ones which help us develop a deep bond with God. The only difference is that we should understand that we are learning about someone who is all perfect, unlike us. And with that perspective, if we try to understand or at least, comprehend the Leelas, it will just make us love him more and more, because, that just brings another aspect to it.
True. And that's essentially what he's saying, that we need to bring divine sentiments to his Leela. So when you're listening to it, you say, oh my God, it was God, right? Oh my God, it was God. It's a good one. So you're thinking about it. It is God, all perfect. This is how he did that. And he's willing to do that for us. So we need to bring in those divine sentiments as opposed to a mundane intellect around those Leelas. Yes, I see a couple of hands.
Yeah, Prashanta ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, thank you. Nitinji, I actually have a question from the previous session, that you mentioned that the more you read Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge deepens and your understanding goes high, right? There was a slide there. And I have quite analyzed that. And I have actually read Gita by Srila Prabhupada, Swami Chinmayananda, Acharya Prashant, and Swami, I think, Prabhupada, Chinmayananda, Mukundananda, and Acharya Prasant, 4 types, right? And from all those things, what I have mentioned is that all the philosophies are quite different, and it is like in one sloka I get stuck there because I want to take knowledge from all those 4 things, right? And when I read one sloka from one thing, one sloka from another thing, and I become like, oh my god, it can be viewed in this perspective, it can be viewed in this perspective, and I become like, well, what if I add my perspective in that? And in some sense I'm stuck there, right? And the knowledge gets deepened, no way, no doubt about that. No, the knowledge gets deepened, but the time gets like, okay, if I get one proper answer, that would be quite good. So what kind of things? So should I stuck to one or disregard others, or should I, keep on reading from all the Swamijis?
So you have to take a step back and first understand that the Sanatan Dharma is pretty rich, right? In that sense, there are multiple branches within Sanatan Dharma also. Right? There is Advait, there is Vishisht Advait, conditional Dvait, all that stuff is there. So in that sense, depending upon which lineage you're following it from, they will explore it from that perspective only. Okay. If somebody is telling you from a Advait perspective, they will talk about Ishvara, impersonal Brahman. They will not bring in the personal form of Krishna at all in that perspective, right? And if somebody is actually from Dvait, they will bring in that aspect of it. So it is like elephant is elephant. Depending upon what you are touching, those 5, right? I'm not saying they're blind men, but they are explaining it from one lens only, which was relevant at that time. So if you look at it, this whole impersonal thing started from Shankaracharya ji, who came in immediately after Buddha. And if somebody is following that path, right, the commentaries that have been written in that path would talk about impersonal Ishvara only. And if you read that, that will be a perspective where the personal form of God is not even spoken about. And if you go to commentaries who's following Madhvacharya or Nimbarkacharya, then they will explain it from that aspect. Kripalaji Maharaj, he reconciled. He said, you were also right and you were also right. It's actually the whole elephant he has explained. So you connect with the commentary that pierces your heart, because if you do subscribe to multiple things, that is why it is said, if you go on to read scriptures on your own, thinking you can do it, it will confuse you even further. And there is a good possibility you may even become an astic. Okay, you will say this contradicts this contradicts this. This is essentially what Kripalaji Maharaj did when he went to Kashi Vishwapal. He said, all these scriptures are farce, basically. He cut Ramayana with Mahabharat, Mahabharat with Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam with Bhagavad Gita, and all the scriptures he contradicted, and none of the scholars could actually justify that what you are saying is not wrong and not right. He was actually do the khandan or the contradiction, because that is how scriptures are. They are explaining it from a particular lens. And then if you simply take it on that, and you are not working with an expert or a guru or a realized saint, your intellect will get confused. So these scriptures have to be understood under the expert guidance of a guru. From your standpoint, whichever philosophy comes very naturally to you is dictated by your past sanskars, purv sanskars. Work with an expert guidance of a guru, he'll resolve your doubts. And whichever commentary is making sense, do that. If you start reading scriptures on your own, Bhagavad Gita 10, 15 commentaries, it will confuse you more than bring in clarity. So the whole purpose of why you started reading Bhagavad Gita will be defeated. Okay, that is how I'll put it. I've also gone through multiple books, but when I read Swamiji's book, just very logical, simply presented, and it basically exemplifies or follows the philosophy that Kripalaji Maharaj preached throughout his lifetime, and he was able to reconcile all these philosophies beautifully together. But it's not a 5-minute conversation, it has to grow into you. So what I would suggest, rather than laying your head on multiple books, settle down for a guru and work in expert guidance with them. They will be able to resolve your doubts to your satisfaction, as opposed to you trying to do it on your own.
Okay, that means, if guru is not available, let's say if guru is not available for me right now, if I'm not able to access guru, then in that case, should I should I stick to one book and read that multiple times, or, should I refer to...
It's usually a good idea to dig one well as opposed to digging multiple wells, because your odds of finding water increase. See what I'm saying? When we dig multiple wells, a little bit here, little bit there, little bit everywhere, then you will not find water anywhere. You will be all over the place. So it's better to start digging one well. and see where it takes you. Because if you are seeking it for the right reasons, God will lead you to somebody who can explain that meaning as well. That is how it's meant.
Okay, thank you, Radha. Thank you.
Radhe, Radhe, no worries. I think Pallavi ji, I saw her hand as well.
Beautiful, Nitinji. In fact, I wanted to add one aspect to this, which is in the beginning, another way is like reading whatever is helping us becoming more peaceful, calm, and taking us closer to God. We could probably try reading it more in depth. And once we get some in-depth understanding, then actually everything else will also start making sense, because we start seeing that what different lenses they are coming from. And
True. It's a very good thing. Same thing as ek sadhe, sab sadhe na koi. So if you go to the depth of one, then finally you'll be able to appreciate that, you know what, everybody is saying the same thing, just the levels are varying. Somebody is probably at the surface, somebody is going a little deeper, somebody is going a little more deeper, but everything is essentially saying the same. So when you start having that realization, that means you have dug your one well good enough. Basically, some water has started coming out of it. So when you really go deep into one, others will start making sense. I don't see any contradictions, to be honest, when I read multiple commentaries right now. Previously, everything seemed different to me. Now everything seems same, but I'm able to appreciate the differences or the layers or the depths they are exposing us to, basically. That realization will start coming in. Yes, Pallavi ji.
Yes, Pallavi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Nitinji, Radhe Radhe, everyone. So, very, very beautiful class session as always, Nitinji. I just want to reiterate what everybody is saying, what Sandhya ji mentioned, what you mentioned, that when my experience was that I was having like tons and tons of questions and doubts, and I needed clarifications on everything. But I think, as you have said, that, you know, this journey is from faith to faith, not from doubt to doubt. The moment we started putting more faith, and the purpose of knowledge is to develop that devotion. And then this change suddenly starts happening inside our mind. Our mind starts getting purified also. We see the difference, that devotion, that love for God that starts pouring in. Yeah. So
very true. Very nicely said.
So
And
thank you. That's what I wanted to put to, like, you know, agree with all of you. That, yeah.
Thank you, Pallavi ji. Very beautifully articulated. Yes, it's a journey from, you said, faith to faith, and Swamiji also says from understanding to understanding rather than from doubt to doubt. So let's make it understanding to understanding, and then you don't need all the signals to turn green before you take your, first step out of your house. One signal has turned green, make that journey, take that step and see where it takes you. And, I think that is how we keep on progressing, as opposed to, I need to have all the answers before I'll take my first step. Doesn't work that way. Yes.
Yes, we have a couple of more hands, and also I wanted to make announcements maybe after taking these hands.
Sure, let's take a couple and again make an announcement.
Yeah. Arunji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Yeah, even I was having very similar points to what Pallavi was trying to say. And yeah, also just to like somewhat iterate or reiterate or sum up. So the thing is that mostly the intellectualization of the Leelas. So though we tend to do that, and we don't understand things and stuff like that, usually this is where the Acharya Sambandham plays a big role. Because they tend to bring you the perspective that you might not be able to understand with your own mind and intellect. So if you have an Acharya Sambandham, there's nothing like it. So, but the thing is that since most of us are not that fortunate to have that, yeah, in such cases, we just, we assume, we know for sure that God is perfect. So we just take it with that, and we don't try to intellectualize it beyond a point. Because, even the Upanishads say, right, the one who does not, after listening to everything about different gods' Leelas, the one who agrees to the fact that he does not know God is the one who's actually knowing God. So it comes out that way. So, one who feels that he has read a lot of things and he understands how God operates is the one who has not understood God at all. So that's what it usually says. So that's one thing I wanted to add. And the other thing about which Nitinji, you were saying about, you over a period of time, you read multiple, commentaries and then you find them unifying. I also feel like I have a very similar experience because if you read Ramanujacharya's Gita Bhashyam, or if you read, ISKCON's, or if you read J.K. Yogg's, ultimately you all see them, they're kind of merging, because I tend to supplement my understanding with different commentaries, and I kind of see they're all like very similar actually underneath. So, that way it just sometimes it helps to strengthen the understanding, but that's what I've observed. Yeah.
It's unifying, very true. Right? And you will be able to see the just the depths in basically what level they are going to, but they're all unifying. I don't see any contradiction whatsoever. Yes, if you are laying your hands on somebody who's material, who's analyzing it, reducing it to metaphors and stuff like that, then it might get confusing. But if you're going to somebody who's sages and saints who have written their commentary, you'll find it all unifying. Very true. Very nicely stated. Thank you so much, Arunji.
Radhe
Radhe.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Archana ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. I just wanted to add that my personal experience, that I first read and heard the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then started reading the Gita. So it made a whole lot of difference, I believe, because after reading the Bhagavatam, that developed the divine love for Lord Krishna. And then my mind was totally divine when reading the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, and there was no intellectual aspect to it. I mean, I was trying to understand, but with the open mind and not trying to understand, like what Nitinji said, that don't put your too much intellect into it. So my 2 cents is like, first go through the Bhagavatam and then start reading the Bhagavad Gita.
No, that is good. You did the postdoc first and doctorate later. So that is typically the sequence goes the other way around. You read Bhagavad Gita and then go to Bhagavatam, but that is good. Maybe that is how it was planned for you, which is very nice. Again, the other concept is put your buddhi in the world and man in God.
Yeah.
Our principle is ulta, right? We put man in world and buddhi in God. You know what? God is like, no, maybe not. How did he do that? All the buddhi for God and man is in world. Right? We trust everybody around, most of the people around at least. It should be the other way around. Our man should be in God and buddhi in world. Okay, look at with a pinch of salt, not that you become skeptical about everybody, but buddhi has to be applied in world, not in God. Okay, God, you take it on face value. Okay, his leelas, he's very clearly saying, take my leelas like that. Other things you can, of course, put your intellect around. Like Arjun is also doing that, is asking right questions. So to begin with, you can do that. But then your man should be in God, buddhi in world, not the other way around.
I think it goes back to what in Bhagavad Gita also, when Arjun was not comprehending, and then Krishna has to show his divine form. And that's when Arjun developed his faith after seeing that divine form, and he blindly started trusting Lord Krishna. So that's where I think I stand, is when I read Bhagavatam, I just have the blind faith and love for Krishna. And then whatever he's saying, I'll just trust it. I'm not trying to judge it or trying to understand.
What you call blind faith, I'll call it intelligent faith. Okay. It's called intelligent faith. So, yeah. It takes a lot of conviction actually to get to realize or to take a conviction to God's leelas. Okay. And then I think you are blessed in that sense. Maybe that work was done in one of our previous lives for you to take it on face value, which is good, which is what is needed. Thank you so much for that. Yes, you wanted to make some announcements. Let's quickly do that. And Kumarji is waiting as well. So then we can take his hand as well.
Yeah, yes, just I'll take a few minutes. So I have posted the links for all the announcement. First of all, Swamiji is right now in Pennsylvania. So anybody who's there, do not miss out on the opportunity to meet him. I have shared the link of all his US tour details. So check out when he's in your city and meet him. Then we have the family camp, the annual most awaited annual event of JKO, the Dallas Family Camp and Spiritual Retreat coming up. 7 days, excellent set of activities. You should check that out. I've posted the link. We have the family camp is from July 4th to 10th. So, and you can also attend it virtually. So please consider registering for it. Then we have a youth leadership workshop, which is July 13th to 14th, where various skills for personal development like communication, goal setting, decision making, problem solving, teamwork, and very importantly, time management will be taught by Swamiji and various other experts. And this is specifically designed for youth. So please consider sending your children, or if you yourself are in the category of youth, participating in it. Last is monthly Sundarkand part. So at Radhakrishna temple, we have monthly Sundarkand part, which is on this Saturday. So which I think can also be attended virtually. So please check that out. Posted the link. Fill out the feedback tracker. You can put your questions, comments, any queries over there. Nitinji will look into it and get back to you. So that's it.
Or you can simply say Radhe Radhe, Sham se mila de, okay? Say hello, hi, whatever. Hola.
Shyamji se bhi mila denge फिर Nitinji.
Yeah. So please do fill out the feedback tracker as well. Yes, Kumarji, sorry to make you wait.
Sorry, Kumarji. Thank you for waiting. Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Jai Shri Ram, Nitin ji, and Jai Shri Ram, everyone. Sandhya, I know you purposefully wanted me to wait, right, till you finished your stuff. That's okay. So one thing is, I've seen several Bhagavad Gita books. I have to vouch for this, and this is not because I'm in a JK Yoga session. Swami Mukundananda's book is the best. It's not only the best, this is the only book I felt like reading. I don't know what it is. I have the physical book, and of course it's available online as well, but the physical book is so beautiful with illustrations and the way Swamiji has explained and kind of put things together. Fantastic. This is my own experience. So I would suggest, just don't waste time reading other books. Read this. If not, of course, again, for each their own, right? So I just wanted to mention that. Meanwhile, a lot of us, when we are in this path and people start questioning us, like, oh, you say Ram is the greatest. Why did he kill Bali from the back? I'm like, initially I used to have those questions as well. Ram doesn't need to kill him from the back, but there is a reason for that and all that stuff. Now, they even say, why did Ram have to go through this? If he was God, just send an arrow straight from wherever he was staying, where he lost Sita, it could have just gone and pierced Ravana and finished him, right? And they also talk about Vali, who was so powerful that it seems he held Ravana by his neck, and Ravana could not escape. He just let him go out of this one. So he could have taken Vali's help also. But if we see really a lot of life lessons being told in Ramayana, right? So if there is something happening to you, you have to take control of it. You have to kind of work towards it, not let other people do it. At the same time, he could have asked Wali to take care of him, but Wali himself was doing something wrong, right? He had abducted his brother's wife, which is absolutely not the right thing to do. So how can he do that, right? So everything happens for a reason. But think of this. Why did he not send an arrow? One day he asked me, I said, how can you say this? How Sundarkand is the best part of Ramayana. You listen to it, your bhakti will increase multifold. Or if you don't have bhakti, you'll start having bhakti, right? What a great piece of all the Kands. That is the best one, like you just listen to it. As soon as Ram meets Hanuman, things change. Things are so beautiful. Things just, all the difficulties disappear. So also in our lives, when we read that, difficulties in our lives will start disappearing. If they don't disappear, at least in your mind, you won't be disturbed by that. So everything happens for a reason. So also in South India, they say, oh, Karna was a great king. They killed him by deceit. Not really, not really. If you see everything as a reason, the end reason is the upholding of Dharma, right? And that is the reason why these things are there and told as this. So, initially I used to question as well, but no longer. So let's not question it. Just go towards Jnana and Bhakti. Thanks. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Jai Shri Ram. And by the way, adding to the Bali commentary, Bali, when Lord Ram asked him, he was actually saying, Ram, I know who you are, and I will not forfeit this opportunity to get killed by your hand and have you in front of me while I depart from this life. Never, even if you give me a choice, I don't want to change this. That is what who Bali is telling Lord Ram at that point, okay? And people are questioning. The person who's at the receiving end is saying that to Lord Ram, okay? I don't want to change anything. I know who you are, and big sages don't get this opportunity to have you in front of them when they depart. So he understood what it means for his journey thereafter. He's saying that, and people are questioning it and degrading their journey. So God's leelas are not to be dissected. It's a very simple thing. You can't take it in a laboratory and start dissecting it. It will not take us anywhere. So nevertheless, thank you so much, Kumarji, for that commentary. I know our philosophy session or going through the Tattva Gyan aspect of it is technically over, but you're welcome to stay back for the devotional segment, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to bite their nail and raise their hands very soon. So let's move on to our devotional segment. I see a hand raised already. All right, let's get started. So thank you, everybody, and you can stay back. We do a bit of a chanting and then we'll wrap up our session. So go ahead, Sandhya. You are the first one. So first in, first out.
Okay. Okay, we can have Monica ji first because I raised hand so that others can raise, and
It's
then
going to be Laddu today. She bit her nails
Laddu
yesterday,
has to
so
sing.
today she's going to
Okay.
sing. Huh? Go ahead.
Okay, we'll
Go ahead,
first
Seema.
hear her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please. Okay. Radhe Radhe भैया, Radhe Radhe everyone.
Seema.
चंद्रमा ललाट पे भस्म है भुजाओं में, वस्त्र बाग चाल का है खड़ा पाँव में, प्यास क्या हो तुझे, गंगा है तेरी जटाओं में, जटाओं में, जटाओं में, दूसरों के वास्ते
भोलेनाथ शंकरा,
तू सदैव है जिया,
हे शिवाय शंकरा,
मांगा कुछ कभी नहीं,
भोलेनाथ शंकरा,
तूने सिर्फ है दिया,
हे शिवाय शंकरा,
समुद्र मंथन का था समय जो आ पड़ा, द्वंद्व दोनों लोक में विश्व अमृत पे था छिड़ा, अमृत सभी में बांट के
प्याला विष का तूने खुद पिया। नमो नमो जी शंकरा, भोलेनाथ शंकरा, हे त्रिलोकनाथ शंभु, हे शिवाय शंकरा। नमो नमो जी शंकरा, भोलेनाथ शंकरा, रुद्रदेव हे महेश्वरा।
Beautiful too. You guys are awesome. Did you just plan it or it just came out organically?
Organically.
You guys are, you guys should have been twins, okay? And then you have a third twin also, Kavita here. Awesome. Amazing. Amazing. Very nice.
Thank you.
Keep bringing such stuff to our sessions. It's always a pleasure, you know. That was pretty amazing. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure is all ours, Nitesh. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much, Laddu. And welcome back. I think we heard you after a long time.
But I was always there.
You're always there, but we heard you. Bhajan singing, yes.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great.
Har Har Mahadev.
Har Har Mahadev. Bam bam bole, but we should not suffix it by saying de de chandi ke gole, okay? Bam bam bole, that's it. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Sanjay.
Wonderful duo performance. Really loved it. Okay. This is a bhajan that I've sung earlier as well, but I like it, so I'll just go ahead again.
Yeah, go ahead.
राधे अलबेली सरकार रटी जा राधे राधे, राधे अलबेली सरकार रटी जा राधे राधे, 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 तेरा जन्म सफल हो जाए, रटी जा राधे राधे, राधे अलबेली सरकार रटी जा राधे राधे, जो राधे राधे गावे सो प्रेम पदारथ पावे। जो राधे राधे गावे सो प्रेम पदारथ पावे। पावे मंडल रास बिहार रटे जा राधे 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 अलबेली सरकार रटे जा राधे राधे। शिव गोपी भेष बनायो वृंदावन रास रचायो। शिव गोपी भेष बनायो वृंदावन रास रचायो। बंशी बट में किया बिहार रटे जा राधे राधे। हो राधे अलबेली सरकार रटे जा राधे राधे। जो राधे नाम न हो तो कृष्ण बिचारो रो तो। जो राधे नाम न हो तो कृष्ण बिचारो रो तो। और नहीं होता प्रेम अवतार रटे जा राधे राधे। हो राधे अलबेली सरकार रटे जा राधे राधे। जिन राधे नाम न गायो तिन बिरथा जन्म गवायो। जिन राधे नाम न गायो तिन बिरथा जन्म गवायो। ऐसे जीवन को धिक्कार रटे जा राधे राधे। हो राधे अलबेली सरकार रटे जा राधे राधे। रटे जा राधे राधे रटे जा राधे राधे। रटे जा राधे राधे रटे जा राधे राधे। तेरा जन्म सफल होई जाय रटे जा राधे राधे। That's it. Thank you.
Awesome, Sandhya. Very nice. Beautifully bhavpuri sung. Such a beautiful bhajan. You have memorized it by heart, huh? Seems like.
No, not memorized it. I was seeing little bit here and there so that I don't make mistakes.
Very
But I
nice.
really love the lines of this, each and every line. It's so beautiful. I would have loved to share the meaning. I mean, I can probably briefly summarize it, or Nitinji, you can, but yeah, it's
Oh,
very
go
nice.
ahead. You can summarize it. And Arunji is going to sing it as well today. So go ahead if you
Wow.
want to.
Okay, I can just briefly summarize it. It just basically says that your birth will be a success if you keep chanting the name of Radharani. And it also talks about that love avatar couldn't have happened, basically. Love couldn't have existed because Krishna is also dependent upon Radharani for expressing his love. And Shivji, like just before Seema and Monica ji, sang beautifully about Shivji. And Shivji also took actually form of a gopi just to experience the ras with Krishna. So this bhajan also talks about that. So yes.
Very nice. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yes, we'll talk about Radha, a little more maybe. Nivan is going to sing as well. I don't know. They say that Radha र की नुक्ता अगर नहीं होती तो राधे श्याम आधे श्याम रह जाते हैं. Anyways, that is the significance of Radha, right? So very true. Yes, Arunji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Actually, yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know any Hindi bhajans and all as such, but Sandhya ji was like, why don't you try something? So I just picked that very simple one, Raghupati Raga Rajaram, 4 lines.
Very
and
nice. Please go ahead.
yeah, just that I don't know any bhajans, so I just picked something that was popular. Yeah. Okay. रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम सुंदर विग्रह मेघ श्याम गंगा तुलसी सालग राम भद्रगिरीश्वर सीताराम भगत जन प्रिय सीताराम जानकी रमन सीताराम Jaya Jaya Raghav Sitaram Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patita Pavan Sitaram. That's it. Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful, Arunji. You seem like a trained singer. Huh? Your pitch, all that stuff was flawless. Very nice.
Bathroom singer, but yeah.
You sing well. You got talent for sure. You could explore it more. And maybe more Hindi bhajans. Now you have an incentive to learn and bring to our sessions, but very nicely sung. You know, your
Thank
lay, pitch, and everything was like pretty good.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
You're
After
going to
so
get
long, we got
compliment.
to hear Anansi again. Now you should sing more often.
And you made a smashing debut, I must say that. Smashing debut, okay? Like Hrithik Roshan did with Kal Ho Na, or whichever that movie was, okay? Kab Ho Na Pyar Hai, whatever. So, Monica, you're going to get some compliments from Monica ji now, okay? Yeah, go ahead, Monica ji.
Yes, Monica ji.
Arunji, thank you so much for singing the original lyrics, not the Bollywood version of it. Thank you so much. We were singing along with you. You sang it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you so
Very good, Bhaiya. Very good.
Awesome. Great. So with that, I think we come to the end of today's session. Sorry. Anything you were
Yes,
saying?
yes. No, I'm saying yes. Perfect.
Okay, Monica ji is saying something.
Oh, she
I
wants-
can see Nivan. Is he going to sing?
No,
Let me-
he's saying,
No,
what are you going to pay me if
you
I
want to
sing?
sing?
He's become a businessman with us, okay, right now. So we are negotiating.
Radhe Radhe Nivan.
Are you going to sing, Nivan?
Radhe Radhe Radho.
Are you going to sing when your teeth come back?
Kirtan.
Just say Radhe Radhe. Wala Subhajan. 2 minutes.
Again?
It's okay. Okay. Shabash.
Go ahead,
Jaldi.
Nivan. On the count of five.
Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe.
Wow, Nivan.
कितना प्यारा गाया ना बस.
I need to take music lessons from you now. Okay.
Beautiful. Amazing,
Very
Nivan.
nice. See how many hearts you are getting. And next time you need to sing a different bhajan. I know you know for quite a few now, but really did well. So many hearts. Thank you,
can
Nivan.
Nothing.
Good job. Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody, for a wonderful. Okay, mute now. So for a wonderful session. So tomorrow we'll continue on our discussion, and tomorrow we are going to talk about what is God's address, where does God reside, and we will put Murti Puja, deity worship, into perspective as well. So thank you. Good day. Have a good rest of your day and a blissful evening. I'll see you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Radhe Radhe. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.